videos, a lot of you guys have asked me a lot of questions about how to key mushrooms out, and the best advice that I can give you is, for starters, either go to your local bookstore or your library and take out a few mycology texts and study up on one or two species. Ideally, you would pick a single species that you're interested in learning about and learn how to do a spore print, learn how to do a squash mount, learn how to positively identify at least a single mushroom. I can't stress this enough. Do not attempt to eat a mushroom unless you are 100% sure of what the species of that mushroom is. Even then, let's say that you were able to key this out as an Amanita Muscaria. These mushrooms are consumed over in Japan. They have a, I don't know what county it is or province, but they have a mushroom festival. There are toxic substances in these mushrooms that are polar molecules, so they'll leach out in water. So what they do to prepare these for eating is they'll soak them in salted water for a period of time, several changes of water dumping the water that'll leach out these chemicals. Now, an example of leaching out, as you can see how pale this is, we had a couple days of severe rain in this area, and these mushrooms were bright orange, and as you can see now they're quite pale. They almost look like Amanita pantheris, but I know they're not because I saw them before they leached out. This is one of the dangers of picking mushrooms and eating mushrooms and not knowing exactly what you're eating. If you were to be picking these that look like this and then inadvertently to harvest a few Amanita pantheris and eat them, you could be in serious trouble. Furthermore, a lot of people have different reactions to mushrooms, and even amongst edible varieties, some people will have severe reactions to mushrooms that are listed in mycology textbooks as being harmless and good to eat. Alright, I told you guys I would show you how to make a spore print, so what we're going to use is this Amanita right here. Now, what you want to do is you want to cut off the stipe and leave a little bit of the stipe, and ideally you're going to want the stipe. So that's perfect right there. This part of the stipe, this cross section, will function as a nice little platform for the mushroom to balance on, so it's not touching anywhere around. And then we're going to take this bowl. It doesn't have to be see-through, but what we're doing here is we're making sure that the air inside of here is all still so that the spores will drop directly down onto the paper, and we'll get what amounts to a mushroom fingerprint, which is one of the things that you use, one of the physical characteristics that you use to identify a mushroom. One of the first things you have to do is take a spore print, mainly because different mushrooms have different colored spore prints. Amanitas will produce white spores, and you can also take those spores and look at them under a microscope. And some mushroom species, the only way you can identify them, the only morphological characteristic that they have that differs from other species, is actually the shape of the individual spores. So we'll come back to this in a little bit, and I'll show you what the spore print looks like. Now, we did this a couple hours ago, and as you can see, we have a beautiful spore print, which was from the spores falling out of the gills here. It's the equivalent of a mushroom fingerprint. As you can see, the spores here are white, which is consistent with the Amanitas. And if we had my microscope set up, we could take little samples of the spores and we could look at it under a microscope. So that's how you do a spore print. Now, what I want to show you guys here is these are Amantia Muscaria Formosa. But as you can see, the rain has washed almost all the white spots off. This one has a few left. And it's marginated the outer edges. The rain was so intense and these mushrooms are so advanced in their maturation process that it's actually changed the morphology of the mushroom. So this is one of those cases where if you don't know what you're doing, you could look at this and not know what type of mushroom it is. You can see this breaks apart pretty easily. It's just really mature, and the rain was so intense that it marginated the edges. You can see Here the mushroom's just falling apart. This is an incredible year for Amanita muscaria. These are some of the largest amanitas I have ever seen. This is a magnificent, beautiful specimen. Here's a... This is another one. This one's almost gone by, but these mushrooms weigh a couple pounds easily. Just incredible examples of this mushroom. This is why this is probably one of my favorite mushrooms. It's definitely the prettiest mushroom that we have in the Northeast. Now these mushrooms have a symbiotic relationship with certain evergreen trees, and right next to me here is a pine tree, and these mushrooms are having a mutual beneficial relationship with the pine tree. They're getting certain essential nutrients from the pine because mushrooms are closer to animals than plants and can't photosynthesis. They don't have any chlorophyll. So what the pine tree is doing, the pine tree has chlorophyll and is utilizing sunlight and nutrients in the soil to photosynthesize and produce sugars. These mushrooms are taking advantage of that. Now what the plant gets out of it is pine trees require quite a bit of moisture. This species of mushroom, the mycelium, will produce what's called a mantle around the root structure of the pine tree, and during periods of dry weather, the pine tree is able to utilize the moisture stored in that mantle for its benefit. So both the fungus and the plant benefit from this companionship. This is an amanita that just recently came up after the rain. You can see how pale this one is. The rain has washed out most of the coloring. Now, a lot of people that don't know what they're doing will go out and harvest these things and will eat them to try to get a reaction. They might eat these ones that have been washed out and not get any reaction at all, and they might turn around and eat the small button ones, which are much stronger because they haven't been rained on, so more of the active component resides in this cap. So dosing yourself with these, if you don't know what you're doing, can be kind of risky. One of the other things that amanitars are attributed to is there are some people that claim that Christianity was actually a mushroom cult and that Jesus Christ was eating Amanita muscaria. And you can see this kind of looks like a little bit of a cup, which gives reference to the Holy Grail, meaning that Amanita muscaria are the Holy Grail. Now we're in a graveyard here. Graveyards, rural areas where a lot of shrubbery has been planted and where people mulch quite frequently are fantastic areas to pick up amanitas because the humidity stays high and there's the right amount of substance on the ground to produce these things. This is a beautiful button mushroom, quite large. You can see these are nice and yellow. Now what you want to be careful, these are found in the same areas and superficially look a little bit like an amanita, but if you look underneath you'll see that it's got the hymeneum layer is actually sponge-like. This is a bolete known as a slippery gill or jack. These are edible but will cause gastric problems, stomach aches and diarrhea in people that are sensitive to them. Some people are even allergic to the coating on the surface of the slippery gills and jacks. Once again, I urge caution when keying out these mushrooms if you plan on eating them. Now at first glance, this right here might look like a muscaria, but as I pointed out before, it's not. See, this is a bolete, probably a slippery gill or jack that's gone by. So you want to check these really carefully. This is how people get in trouble. They don't know what they're doing. They think they're picking the right kind of mushroom, and in their haste, they end up picking something that hurts them. These, luckily enough, are very benign. Like I said, there are a few people that are allergic to these, but for the most part, the worst problem that you'd have is an upset stomach. Now this one right here, oh wow, this is an awesome find. This is even different from these other ones. This is a king bolete. It's either a king bolete or a bitter bolete. I'd have to taste it or look at the spores under a microscope to tell for sure, but tasting is safe enough. But I think I'll take this one back and eat it. I know it sounds kind of morbid, but graveyards are a fantastic place to harvest mushrooms in the fall. campus of UMO, which is my hot spot for getting a variety of mushrooms, especially the Amantia Muscaria, and they are thick as fleas this year. We've already harvested one grouping of them. Now, the ones I picked yesterday were quite washed out and pale. You can see these have got this beautiful orange coloration. One of the problems people have when they're dosing themselves with these mushrooms is that, as you can see, this one's quite pale. There's a considerable difference in toxicity from something small. Obviously, the same amount of active components are in this little small button mushroom, and it hasn't expanded yet. Most mushrooms are 80 to 90% water. When they're small like this, there's a lot less water in them because they're much more dense. And like I explained before, the active components are polar molecules, so they tend to get washed out in the rain. So obviously this one right here wouldn't have the same potency as, say, this one over here. Now, come this way, I want to show you guys something else that I just found. This is absolutely awesome. This right here is a beautiful king bolete. Bolete ediulus, I think it's called, referring to the edible bolete. The French call them crepes or something. I can't remember exactly what it is. This one's pretty mature. I don't know if it's very edible or not. It's kind of spongy on the top. The stipe is probably still edible. One of the things that you want to be careful about when you're harvesting edible mushrooms is you want to pick fresh specimens that aren't riddled with Coleoptera or Diptera. Diptera are types of flies, and Coleoptera are different species of beetles. Both of these insects are very fond of mushrooms. So what I'm going to do to this guy right now, just to show you guys, is if you're harvesting an edible mushroom like a bolete, we'll cut off the base here. Yeah, oh no, this one's in great shape. You'd look at the base of it here. If there was a bunch of little holes there, that would be an indication that Diptera larvae and Coleoptera larvae have gotten inside of this. And you can see here that this one hasn't got any insects in it at all. This is a really extraordinary find. This is one of the species of fungus that tastes almost exactly like crab meat. It's a type of Hyaceae. Now this is a beech tree known as Fagus grandifolia is its Latin name. And these are quite frequently found on beech trees that are in the process of dying. In the state of Maine, beech trees are attacked by another fungus called Nectria, a really small little fungus. A friend of mine did a series of grad work on the Fagus grandifolia and the Nectria that attacks us. Hyaceae are known as a type of tooth fungus. There's a species that grows on the ground that looks like a Basidiomycota, which is actually called a hedgehog mushroom. If we find one of them, those are really nutty tasting. Will get really large, 20 pounds or so. As you can see here, it's got a whole series, they almost look like little icicles. There's two different species of this that grows in the state of Maine. I think there's 3 of them actually in the Northeast, and all of them are choice edibles. This is a really safe fungus for beginners to pick because it doesn't look like anything that would be poisonous. So if you find a tooth fungus that's on a beech tree, it's quite safe to consume. Now, anytime you find these, you want to check, because look right here. See it down there? There's another little bit of it that's growing. We'll see if we can pull it out. Now, if we were to come back in a few days or a week, these will do a number of flushes. This is known as a late fall mushroom. I have actually harvested these in January during a thaw, during a warm spell. These will sprout. There was snow in the ground when I harvested them. But we're gonna eat these tonight. These, I can't tell you how, this is perhaps my favorite edible mushroom.